Well, I have been creating since I was a very young girl. I remember being 4 years old and drawing. I have a rare birth defect that I was born with called Holt-Oram syndrome, which affected the ways that my hands developed in the womb. So I'm missing muscles in my arms and in my wrists. I'm missing bones and I'm missing certain tendons and stuff in my upper limbs and in my hands. So from being a very young age, I was told, my parents were told to just have me do a lot of art and draw a lot with my hands and use my hands and not to like hold back from using anything that would be, not to hold back from using my hands even though they had a limitation. So that was essentially like occupational therapy for me from a very young age. I remember going to my aunt's house who lived here in Albuquerque. I grew up here in Albuquerque, and she would always have me draw things. She knew I was into fashion and things like that. And so even when I was like 6 years old and going and hanging out at my aunt's house when my dad worked or my mom worked or whatever need be, she would have me draw characters for her. And so I've kept a sketchbook since I was a little girl. I remember being at my grandparents' house and going up and drawing them, showing them this picture I drew, which was like of a stuffed animal I had that was a rooster. It's kind of weird. But I drew the rooster and then I put two little tiny legs on it, and I made like a funny little meme saying like, oh, my body's too big to hold my legs up. And then I gave it to my grandma, and I was like 5 years old then. I had issues growing up because people made fun of my hands. There's certain instances where that came. So being an artist sort of early on became like, in my mind, almost like my little secret superpower. Because as a little girl that was made fun of early on, I would hide my hands in the sleeves of my clothes. My brother did the same thing too. And my father was not like embarrassed about his hands. I wasn't raised to be ashamed of them, but it's just something that, because of the way that just humans can be unknowingly, especially kids and into adolescence, we're learning so much and, raising awareness on these things nowadays as well. Like, it really affected the way I saw myself. And then so it's like, even in high school, like, my identity as an artist became really prevalent because that was the thing. A lot of people noticed that I was good at that, and it was something that I was good at despite having these hands that were different, that would be maybe harder, perceived as being harder to create art. But for some reason, for me, that was always like my natural gift. So this was back in, I want to say, I think it was 2010 or 2009. I was working with another artist who's also a really incredible artist here locally, and another artist as well. And we kind of had a group that we were collaboratively doing pop-up shows with, and I had joined their group. And during that time, we were putting shows up in vacant buildings in Albuquerque. And one of the artists that I was working with is one of my very good friends. Her name's Jody Herrera, and she was doing a lot of work. She's always been an artist that has inspired me. And she was doing a lot of work about women and certain things that these women had gone through in their own personal life and how they overcame it. And so those paintings were about those stories. I didn't want to like represent myself in this way that I was bringing attention to my hands, or that I was wanting people to look at it like a sob story. I didn't want that, but I also feel like it was something that I needed to do as well. And she really pushed me in that direction to make a series basically about my hands and what it meant to live with that. on all these different ways. And so I give her credit for encouraging me to do that, because I created this series and actually a good chunk of that series sold. So it's really nice to know that it spoke to somebody and it lives in their home, and it did reach outside of myself. So I had done this series of self-portraits of me with my arms turned into bird wings, whether it was like parrot wings, or and then birds flying. And then I also took it kind of away from the self-portrait, and I did sort of symbolic imagery that was like about the condition. So I'd have like bones and feathers, and it's really kind of interesting because after I had done that series, I haven't really explored it again, but that really opened up so many doors for me artistically. And so it's just interesting. I feel like that series was really important to go through, whether I explore it again. It was like that was a self-identity sort of series. And a lot of my work does talk about things related to myself, but not always is it so direct. Like there's always something personal that's in a piece, even if it seems like it's more universal. But I genuinely, like wholeheartedly believe what is personal is also universal. So the wings in that painting series, like really, it represents a couple of things. So for one, like sort of the literal phoenix rising, metaphor and archetype, like that is just apparent. I feel like a lot of people can look at it and see that in it, even though I didn't do it like, oh, big, huge wings like an angel. It was like, no, my arms are turning into wings and they're awkward. And I wanted to celebrate the awkwardness of it, not just, oh, I'm some grandiose angel or something. That was not the wings feeling that I wanted. Was like angels. Not that I have anything against that, but it was more like of like the phoenix, like this is my weakness, this is the thing that people, look down upon, but it also is my greatest strength. And so it's that whole like rising from the ashes, like this is the thing that's like my hardest struggle in some ways physically, but also it's what's pushed me into my purpose. In high school, freshman year of high school, and I decided that I wanted to work in galleries as well, and I wanted to learn that. So I actually got an internship, a couple of internships. I worked at the Echo Art Center in Taos, and then I worked for free. I interned. And then I got a gallery internship at the Michael McCormick Gallery in Taos. And I just wanted to do it, and got an extra credit for school through that. So I don't know, that just really kind of started me on the path of knowing like the whole scale, the whole spectrum of what it means to be an artist, from being a creator, being somebody who creates and is in the studio, to like, how does that play in the real world? I like working with professional artists at a young age, seeing what they're doing, like literally as their jobs, and I'm facilitating and helping that at a young age. And so I'm sort of like always been a bit of an art dork. So I think that I have always known that I would go in that field. So painting is my anchor. I think I mean it in more than one way. Again, it's that like meditative grounding that pulls me into the physical. I have all these thoughts or ideas or emotions, and I channel it often into my work visually. It's a different language than poetry. I'll sometimes channel it into poetry, but so like it anchors me in the world. There's like a piece of it being something that brings me back to my hands, which was something that obviously as a very young girl, it was very important to develop my hand-eye coordination and place in the world with my hands. So I would say that it's my anchor in that way, but also in the sense that I explore a lot of arts. And the one, I've done everything from jewelry making, silversmithing, clay, you know, I've dabbled in a lot of different mediums, but the one that I love most is painting. And I love a lot of different kind of painting. In fact, I love a lot of different styles of painting so much that I love to explore different mediums, like from watercolor to oil to acrylic. And I also find that depending upon what medium I am playing with, it does change like the imagery in a way, or like the way that I, not maybe the imagery, but like sometimes like the experimentation of different mediums actually influences like what I want to play with in my work, because I tend to like to do a lot of work that juxtapose different styles of painting within one as a way of maybe communicating different ideas in art history or different ways of expressing time periods juxtaposed to another. So I typically, right now, I paint in my garage. It's set up like a studio, and so I can paint and work around people, but ideally, I like to actually be in my studio, music on. I really love to paint to music. I pretty much need that, I feel like, unless I'm doing something outside or in a different environment. But music really helps me. And then just like, I have to just get started, because the biggest hang up at times is just making the first mark. And it sounds weird, but sometimes I don't know if it's just my procrastination in my own being. Like, you know, I know once I get started, I'm gonna be like in it. So I do sort of have to like, I don't just like rush in there, but I'm like, I'll hang out in my studio for a little bit and just, you know, get the mood and the music and just get my stuff set up and, you know, everything's sort of ready. And if it's like a brand new painting, I mean, there's different ways that I approach how I start painting, so it kind of depends on the project. But like, for example, if it's a piece that I've been working on for a while, I can usually just like jump right back into it. Now, if it's brand new, there's a whole other way of getting there. But music plays a very big, important role in kind of getting into that state of flow, so to speak, because there's times where I'm creating and there's resistance and I'm like not like there and it's not like right. Like I can't usually just like get up at any second and start painting. Like I have to be in a mood of sorts. Travel in general is my other love in life. Art and travel. Again, I was born in Albuquerque, and then I moved to Kansas for 3 strange years as a kid, and then we moved to Angel Fire and Taos, and then I went to College of Santa Fe. So just being in New Mexico from down here to up north, like all of those communities are artistic. New Mexico is incredibly artistic in such a unique way, as we know, from so many different cultural aspects. I know I've been influenced by so many things in what I've seen growing up that I don't even probably realize. But just being somebody who grew up in New Mexico around the arts, I don't have like a family of artists that I come from. My dad's into film, but before that, not really, you know, I don't have like a big history of like my family's been artists for years or anything like that. But I've just always been around it, and so it's influenced me, because it's like here in New Mexico, art is everywhere. And like there's other places in the world where it's just not as much like that. And then I've traveled extensively outside of New Mexico. I've been to 29 different countries. So travel is really a big part of my process in creativity, whether it be I write songs too. I don't have a great voice, but like, you know, whether it be that travel itself is like an experience of life and it feeds inspiration in so many ways. Sights, sounds, smells influence us all the time, like without us even thinking about it. Like, and I love thinking about how that stuff affects us as humans. I'm just fascinated by it. So traveling for me is like, it feeds into the whole artist lifestyle. I would say, I mean, ultimately, depending on the piece and the specific story that I'm trying to relay in the piece, or the emotion or whatever it is that I'm trying to express, I would hope that they come back with some of that, some of a piece of me, like my perspective. But also, like, as we're humans, we ultimately are filtering our entire world through our own eyes, our own experiences, and everything that we've been through individually. So inevitably, you're gonna come to an image with your own preconceived notions, feelings. And so in a way, I guess, like, I would love just people to be able to mesh those two things together. You're experiencing a little bit of something from me, as well as your perspective and what it brings to that. So I think that would be my answer. That's an interesting question because it has influenced my practice in many ways. One way is that I'm constantly surrounded by beautiful things. Surrounded by art keeps me inspired, and maybe it's not all beautiful art, but art that challenges you to think. I'm in the field, so like I'm always looking at art, studying art, thinking about art, and I don't escape that in my day-to-day life. So keeping myself immersed in that field and in that realm, it keeps me inspired because I want to create, and I see these people creating stuff, and it motivates you. So there's a lot of motivation that I get from working in that field. Also, I feel like working in, you know, the realm of galleries and doing pop-ups and things like that, and different projects that I've done curatorial work on, it has been my way of sort of contributing and giving back to the community, and keeping me connected to people in the arts, friends and people alike. And so in a way, working in that field, I feel like it's my, me serving like my purpose back to the community instead of just about my own work and my own voice. It's how I can help others. I think it comes from being in the field for so long. I've like worked really on a lot of projects that were just grassroots. I did it for free, labor of love. It was, you know, groups of artists were working together. Also, like, as I became a mom, I really lost a lot of that. And that sounds kind of weird, but like I sort of isolated and went in that direction of just stay-at-home mom. And I kind of was doing a little bit with my art and still like running art shows for the first couple of years. And then I just sort of kind of stopped after I had my second child. It just got harder. But after I had started, I was brought on to do a project and help the gallery that is now in the basement of Artisans. I was brought on as sort of a independent contractor to help start that project, and I curated 12 shows and 12 months for that. And with that came the realization that like I was really missing my people, and that I got such joy out of helping other artists, artists that were already really successful, like that I've known and worked with. I was able to bring them into a space that was, and share that space with artists that had no experience at all. So there was like a range of sharing opportunity with people who were already up there, and then also that had never had a chance before. And I really liked that idea of how we can help each other, like stepping stone that way. We're learning from our mentors all the time. And as a mentor, you're also learning from your students. So like combining those elements where you can break some of those barriers that are sometimes there, I feel like in the art world, like part of why I like the curatorial projects that are more grassroots is like, I feel like a lot of what I was doing was trying to break some of those barriers. You know, what keeps us as artists going forward is often just like, you could be on the brink of quitting and then this opportunity happens where someone sees something in your work and it's not about the money, but they saw something in what you were trying to say, and so you feel like you had an impact and that's reason to go forward. Or someone just, you had a conversation, you know, with your work at a show and they gravitated toward it and you were able to communicate something with them. That to me propels me forward. Because there are times where it's just like, it's a very difficult thing to try to make a living off of if you were to solely do it. That's why I also work in the field. It helps me not put as much pressure on myself to just sell my work. But that is my goal as well. But I'm an artist that wants to make what I'm inspired by at the moment, so I work very much intuitively that way, and I don't really cater to what I see is happening in the market. I'm gonna make what I need to make in that moment. It's just the way I have to move. You know, I think one of my main goals, and it's different depending on each piece, but as a person and as a whole, as an artist, as a being, my goals are often really that I want to inspire creativity. In a lot of ways, I feel like the best artists are the artists that not necessarily made a lot of money, but are the ones that are inspiring people for change, for healing, to create. So if I can help inspire creativity, whether that's through curating shows and giving young artists opportunities, or, you know, creating conversations in those environments, or just if my work itself as a painter inspires someone to want to paint, or gives them some sort of hope, like that's my goal. I want it to be uplifting, even if the work that I'm doing is about something that might be not so uplifting, like I've done work about depression. But the point of that would be to relate to it, and then that maybe somebody could relate in it themselves and then not feel so lonely, and there's something beautiful in that. So it's not all about beauty, but it's like how our stories can connect to other people, how our emotions can connect to other people, because everyone is so individual in their experiences, but we all have these similar emotions. Many of us have gone through a lot of similar experiences, just in different ways. So like, I feel like the goal is connection, like at the heart of it all would be some sort of connection. Well, you actually got to witness me working on it live and in person. It's the most recent piece that I've completed, and it's an extension of sort of this series that I'm working on, where in general I'm very intrigued by playing with the juxtapositions between dimensional space and flat space, where you see that I'm very much intrigued by making this appear very flat and two-dimensional, and this more dimensional and realistic. And I like those juxtapositions because they speak to moments in art history, as well as moments in time, because of those moments in art history referencing different time periods. So in a way, I'm just exploring how these elements interact as a form on canvas, but also just how they interact in our minds, and like it's sort of not what we would typically see. And for one, also like hiding her face, she's sort of coming out. I have other pieces from this series that I have sold that are also have the similar motif of the face being partially hidden. I've done that theme in several of my other bodies of work as well, and it's sort of basically talking about how we have layers to ourselves, how we have certain parts of ourselves that we reveal and certain parts of ourselves that we cover. And in this one, I feel like she's sort of coming out from behind it, and it is titled She Knows What's Right in Front of Her. And it seems like a very obvious statement, but there's something really ambiguous about it because it's just a shape, a flat space, and what does that really mean? And it could mean many things, and I want the viewer to think about what that means. What is it that's in front of her? Is it literally a circle, or what does that symbolize? And so even myself, I don't have a direct answer as to what I want this to represent for the viewer, but I want the viewer to question what it is she might be behind. I really love juxtaposing figurative work to geometric work. I find it intriguing in many ways and many levels, and this one is called Colorful Sorrow. So there's something that she's feeling tears of colorful pain. There's beauty in the pain. She's okay with it. That's sort of the feeling. She's knowing that the sorrow is purposeful and will bring color. So that's kind of the emotion that I want to evoke in that. And so I feel like through playing with all of these different elements, I'm creating multiple dialogues within one piece.